You may think that there are some cards that can only be called confusing. Like Snow has weird wording, Inspector Border is incomprehensible, and why can't Necros of Trishula banish from only the hand on turn 1? Well, Snow is worded that way so she can't chain block with herself or otherwise chain to herself at all. Inspector Border is fine as long as you go slowly and you get the idea by the first time you read through the whole thing. And, well, because that's how Necros of Trishula is worded. We're not talking about those kinds of weird card texts. We're talking about cards that after reading their effect, you have to take a second just to hobble back and go, what did I read? Or just think to yourself, what is this actually trying to help with? So, no cards that just aren't good, because an unfortunate report isn't weird as much as it is circumstantial and bad, basically. It's not interesting. For these top 10 weirdest card texts, Jason Yugioh will be able to make sure that we are all introduced to your new favorite cards.
This video is sponsored by Opera GX. Opera GX is a browser that's built for gamers, even me, a card gamer. They don't discriminate here. They have the GX Control Center, which shows you which tabs are absolutely killing your RAM or CPU usage, which really helps when I have 10 different alt accounts watching the exact same Twitch stream out of support. They even allow you to set hard limits on how much of your computer is hogged up by your browser, leading to making sure you don't have to make the arduous decision of seeing if you'll go beyond that sacred third tab and possibly blue screening your entire computer. You can use Opera's ad block feature, which comes baked into the browser itself. If you're a fan of YouTube Music, Apple Music, or, my personal choice, Spotify, you can completely integrate it into Opera GX. If you want to do something else while it's there you go. You can look up anything you want. It even pauses when other things are going on in the browser. If you're watching a YouTube video, it will automatically pause and unpause. It even works perfectly great on your phone with all the accessibility that I've talked about today. So what are you waiting for? Opera GX is the best browser for gamers, or for anyone really, and you can sign up with my link down below in not just the description, but the comments as well. Thank you to Opera GX for sponsoring this video, and for already being the browser I use for everything.
So I was debating putting this card on like a unique card effects list. If you guys want to see that list, make sure to like this video and comment down below to let me know that you do want to see that, just because I do have quite a few ideas for it. But I feel like this card is just weird enough where I feel like I have to talk about it right now. Transmission Gear. During damage calculation, if your monster battles an opponent's monster, play rock, paper, scissors with your opponent. Make the losing player banish the battling monster they control face down. Okay. So here's a question. How do you do this online? Like on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro, like it has the rock, paper, scissors element. On Dueling Book, how do you do this? Genuinely, I don't want to test this by going up against someone and actually trying to go on ladder to try to rock, paper, scissors someone after deciding who goes first, because I just don't want to do that. So I'm curious. Second off, you know there has to be a specific ruling about this on what ties mean. Like, it's either a tie means you do it again, or the tie means nothing gets banished. There has to be a specific ruling on a tie of a card effect. What other card effect has a tie anywhere in it? Like, other than, like, oh, Kashido Spirit, it doesn't matter if both monsters have the same amount of attack. No, I don't get it. What is Transmission Gear? Why does it make you play rock, paper, scissors? It's amazing. I love it. It's weird. And genuinely, we need more cards like this in Yu-Gi-Oh! Just to be absolutely whack and add, like, a side game. Just get Charizard in Yu-Gi-Oh! Why don't you? Number 9 is from the absolute worst set in Yu-Gi-Oh! No, it's not Cyber Dark Impact, that actually has some good cards in it. We're going to Gladiator's Assault. You know that set that had like a misprint Ghost Rare and that's the only thing that you remember about it? Either that or really whack prices for first ed secret rares? Well, it also had a bunch of terrible cards in it. One of which being absolutely, well, weird. This one is Mirage Tube. Mirage Tube says, this card cannot be activated from your hand. Activate only when a face-up monster you control is selected as an attack target. Inflict 1000 damage to your opponent. Okay. It's a quick play spell that can't be activated from your hand. And for whatever reason, it can only be procced by your opponent during their turn. I know in the anime you can use this during your own turn, so I guess it's balancing for that. No, it isn't, but you can think of it that way. There's this field spell that allows you to attack your own monsters. There's no reason you'd want to do this, like, realistically. You just crash into your opponent's stuff, more than likely. Even if you're doing, like, meme rescue roid, decoy roid weirdness and trying to get this to work in a loop, there's no reason to do that with the field spell. But either way, we're back to Mirage Tube. Mirage Tube is a quick play spell that can't be activated from your hand, and only procs during the opponent's turn. Do you see the problem? We don't have a way to activate a quick play spell from the hand during your opponent's turn. That's not how this works. You can't do that? I don't think there's a card that allows you to do that. I know there's not a generic one, but maybe there's some whack archetype stuff from GX or 5Ds that'll let you do it. I don't know. But I don't understand why this says it can't be activated from your hand. It's just a card where you have to read it and then you go, okay, this card is the equivalent of Now You See Me. Have you ever seen Now You See Me, guys? It's that movie about the magicians and has, like, Jesse Eisenberg in it. It feels like a really cool movie. Like, it's a fun movie, and then you watch it the second time and it makes absolutely no goddamn sense. Well, that's what Mirage Tube is. As soon as you read it the second time, and then you go back around to see, cannot be activated from your hand, you're like, wait, what is happening? And for that, Mirage Tube hits number 9 on this list of the top 10 weirdest card texts. Number 8 is strange in the way that there are a lot of cards that do what this card does, but it doesn't have weird restrictions and ruling text on it. Maiden of the Aqua states, as long as this card remains face up on the field is treated as Umi. Parentheses, however, there is no increasing or decreasing of attack and defense due to Umi's effect. If there is an active field spell card on the field, this effect is not applied. Okay, so let's just get it out of the way that MR3 said that you can have 2 field spells. Let's just take this where it was. You can only have one player can have their field spell up at any given time. So if there's an active field spell, it's not treated as Umi. Because I don't know what that would break in MR1 and 2, but whatever. Sure. I just like the fact that it says the field is treated as Umi, but there's no increasing or decreasing of attack and defense due to Umi's effect. You see this with some of the Gravekeeper stuff that makes it treated as Necro Valley. It doesn't have to state, but the graveyard interaction effects of Necro Valley are not valid here. Yeah, that's kind of implied by the fact that it's not on the field. It's just treated as that. It's not... This feels like a Little Timmy card. Like, this feels like what a Little Timmy would look at and go, oh, I don't get the Gravekeeper monster. I just want... Do I get the attack? I'm not going to look up the ruling. I'm just going to make up playground rules. Maiden in the Aqua is there to go, no. You can't playground rules this. We must teach the Little Timmies. But it's not even that. It's just so ridiculous to assume that someone would actually think that the increasing of attack and defense would actually work as Umi. Because to have this card out in the field, you'd basically need a copy of Umi, if that was how this worked, just to know what it does for the sake of the attack gain. It's kind of amazing to me, honestly. It's kind of genuinely a hilarious card, just in the way of going... It's baffling. It's baffling is what it is. Top 10 baffling card text. I like the word. Baffling. Number 7 is a card that, boy howdy, am I gonna joke on when I do all Archfiends. Yes, I got that as a Twitch donation reward, so we're doing every single Archfiend. That's probably going to be 2 separate videos, honestly, just because of how much there is to cover, but you get the idea. Get hyped for that video, and subscribe down below if you want to see all Archfiends being covered on the JC Gatto channel. But in either case, you might be able to tell which Archfiend has the wackest text just from me saying that. It's Vector Scare Archfiend. It's a Link 3, and its text states, when this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle, and sends it to the graveyard, you contribute 1 monster that this card points to. Special summon that destroyed monster to any zone this card points to. If you special summon to your opponent's field by this effect, this card can make a second attack during this battle phase. Makes sense until the parentheses state, although your opponent gains control of that special summoned monster. I would figure. I gave them the monster. I just took it from the grave and smashed it to their field. I assume they take control of the card that they have. It has super light Viking text. When this card is normal summoned, it is normal summoned. Can anyone justify why this is here? Like, I feel like this is so fun to goof on because this is a Vrains era card. Like, I get Maiden of the Aqua. It's old. Mirage Tube, that's in GX. Transmission Gear is a meme. But this card came out in Vrains. It's not even the only Vrains card on this list. I think Vrains is actually... Yeah, Vrains is the #1 most represented. It has more than half of the cards on this list. So Vrains, what are you doing, dog? Like, I get it. You have to be a little, like, unique with the whole arrow mechanic and all that sort of deal. But then you have whack text like this that just says, hey, if this monster attacks and the attack points are greater than the opposing monster's attack points when it's in attack position, inflict the difference as damage to your opponent. It's just... If you can just... Leave a comment if anything about this card is not redundant to you. Number 6, we're going way far back to go to something that I wanted to do for a long time. Now, I make a whole list about cards like this, honestly. But old cards with really funky text that's been way eroded since then. You know Mask of Restrict? The card that simply states, cards can't be tributed. And that's it. Well, what it used to say is, there are two versions of Mask of Restrict that I love to death because they don't make sense. Or they're just really funny to goof on, rather. You have the first version of Mask of Restrict, which states, no matter what the situation, neither player can offer any monster as a tribute. So little thing, offer any monster as a tribute, that's a kind of weird wording. You can just not tribute them, but that's a better way of wording it, but whatever. My favorite is no matter what the situation. Dude, if it's Tuesday, if you're at locals, regionals, YCS, if you're doing it online, if you're doing it in person, if you're doing it with your friends, your mother, your rival, the school bully, no matter what the situation, if it's raining, if you're in Kentucky, if you're poor, if you're white, if you have dimples, no matter what the situation, neither player can offer any monster as a tribute. It doesn't matter what your name is. And then they eroded it to be slightly less hilarious, but it just brings up like some Hunter x Hunter vibes for whatever reason. We got neither player contribute any monster under any conditions. Keep in mind we're still in the phase where like only monsters can be tributed, so no true Draco stuff going on, in case anyone was wondering, but under any conditions. So, no, you cannot power up your own Nen by pointing a dagger at your heart where you can only use this card against... under any conditions, under any circumstances, no matter what the situation. It's just, you can extrapolate it as far as you want, and I really wanted to be the one guy who would go to a tournament and just call over a judge and it's like, alright, I know it says no matter what the situation, but come on, my daughter's birthday is in 2 weeks and I kind of need, does that help? Is that a situation or condition that would allow me to do this, or is it any condition, or no matter what the situation? Is that what this is? Oh, Mask of Restrict, you're absolutely fucking hilarious. Now we're on the only card on the list that I'm not exactly certain how to pronounce. If anyone wants to leave a comment on how to pronounce this card, please do, if you can do it phonetically, because I watched the Vrains sub, not the dub. Gergens End, it's either Gergens End or Gergens End. I feel like it's more towards the first than the second, but I feel like the first isn't exactly correct. I'm going to be calling it Gergens End. Gergens End! Target one Tin Dangle Link monster you control. Equip this card to it. It cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, also your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Once per turn, if there are monsters in all zones, the equip monster points to. If there are still monsters in all zones, the equip monster points to. You can destroy this card and all of those monsters, then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the equipped monster's attack before they were destroyed. I could have just stopped at, if there are monsters in all zones, the equipped monster points to. If there are still monsters in all zones, the equipped monster points to. It feels like you had like a lapse. It feels like the dementia kicked in mid-card. because I assume that the conditions need to still be met by the time the effect would resolve. That's kind of how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works! So why do we have to put another of the exact same line, and just say, if they're still there, I'd assume they still have to be there. This is better than, like, Vector Scare Archfiend being like, yeah, no duh. Because this is just the same text again, with like a couple words added in, which is hilarious to me. I don't get it. It's just like, you just take out the once per turn, you put it in there, and then you put the word still, as if it wouldn't be any weirder if you just had the same text again. You might as well just do that, just go full meme, like, okay, if there are monsters in all zones the equip monster points to, if there are monsters in all zones the equip monster points to, if there are still monsters in all zones the equip monster points to, if the equip monster still has zones in which monsters are being pointed, you know, just like, you might as well just like try to hit the word limit on your college essay is what this card tells me. This card has not sponsored me, but I will say the name anyway. Bounty. If your attacking monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, target one card in your graveyard. Add it to your hand, but for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with the same name as the added card had once it was in your hand. You can only activate one bounty per turn. Okay, so what does this do, is my question. You might even not know what this card does just from the fact that if you go on the Wikia, it tries to make it a completely different card effect because it actually does matter. It says, with the same name as the added card once it was in your hand. Because it is talking about cards that have different names in the graveyard. Like, we have stuff like, well, Cyber Harpy Lady doesn't matter because it's literally always treated as Harpy Lady, so it would be considered Harpy Lady once it was in your hand or in the graveyard regardless. Things like Cyber Dragon Core, where its name becomes Cyber Dragon while it's in the graveyard, you can add this back with Bounty, and then you can still use Cyber Dragons, you just can't use Cyber Dragon Core. That's interesting, I guess? I don't really get the idea. I don't know why you would want to use this in anything. But, it's interesting. It's a very strange ruling and tech option. It's probably going to get a judge called on them because they didn't read the card exactly how it works, and the judge just goes, nah, I'm not even going to give you a game infraction or anything like that, not even a warning, because this card's whack. I feel you. Like, you gotta get a bro judge. The bro judge is who needs to come in when you're looking for the ruling on Bounty. Next up is a card that I'm honestly amazed not more replay tubers have tried to mess around with just to have some fun. Voltester. If this card is special summoned to a Zone A Link monster points to, destroy all Link monsters that point to this card, then destroy all other monsters that those Link monsters pointed to, and follow the Link arrows of all the destroyed monsters, destroying everything they point to, and repeating the process until there are no more to destroy. This card cannot be destroyed by this effect. You can only use this effect of Voltester once per turn. So, the thing that gets me is, this is a completely unique effect. One that can only really work in MR4, because you look at stuff like Synchros, like, what's the equivalent that you'd have to make for Voltester? Every Synchro that is next to a tuner, that's next to a Synchro, like, what? No, that's lame as hell. That's absolutely lame. This is cool. This is actually really cool. It's just also an incredibly weird effect because, well, it's strange to think that you can pop the same card twice. Like, here's the circumstance. You have a Link, you summon this to, like, a Link monster that your opponent points to. So then it doesn't destroy the Link monster, it destroys what it points to, and if that Link monster is co-linked to the first monster, it will then destroy the first monster. So if your opponent has like a Saryuja, and then they've got the Nightmare Phoenix under it, you have to Voltester and then hope that they co-linked it so that they could get Draw Phoenix. It's not that hard to assume. So that Saryuja will have the electricity pass through him to kill the Nightmare Phoenix, and then the electricity from Nightmare Phoenix goes up and kills the Saryuja. That's pretty funky, dude. That's absolutely funky. You basically just need to worry about co-links when it comes to the first link monster that is pointed to. But also that's a good thing, because you can use your own links, and hopefully it's pointing at an opponent's link monster, which isn't co-linked to yours, therefore you can just clear their co-linked field if they for some reason don't have the Nightmare Cerberus and they're actually trying to co-link. Strange, but we can go with it. Full Tester is a very fun card, as is our next card on the list, so let's go into that after this transition. Hey, we're back! Hey, it's Yajiro Invader! Yajiro Invader is a card that states, if this card is normal or special summoned to a zone that is not the center monster zone, destroy this card. We're already off to a good start. Once per turn, you can move this card to an unused adjacent main monster zone. Each time exactly one monster is normal or special summoned to your opponent's field, move this card to the adjacent main monster zone closer to that opponent's monster's column, then destroy all other cards in this card's column. This is not once per turn. This is a field nuke continuously from the column-based structure of it, strangely enough. But then you just have the fact that it has so much to do with columns. This feels like, okay, I was knocking on a card yesterday for feeling like it was a C-dip card that people were hyping up because of Senate Switch and MR4. This is a card that feels like people, if this came out in Code of the Duelist, people would be like, broke, ban it. This card is broken. This card is ridiculous, dude, because I get to special summon all the time. And then the opponent special summons that I just nuke their board, and I get to move it around. Isn't that funky? And for some reason, it just dies. If you put it in the middle. Like, I get the idea, the middle one is more live, and if you normal summon it to the right-hand side, middle, and then your opponent summons to the side that would be your right-hand side, it moves over to the right and then kills the entire column. Then you can special summon in the center column, which does absolutely nothing, because you can't move this card to the adjacent main monster zone closer to that opponent's monster's column, because you're in the closest one. Then you destroy all the cards in the card's column. But you can't, because you didn't move. So, Yajiro Invader is definitely a very fun card. I don't know what it would ever be used in ever, but it feels like a side deck option for something at some point to somebody. And for that, it makes number 2. Number 1, however, we're back into old cards that don't make any sense as to why you would use them, or what they mean at first glance. We're ending this off with Spirit Elimination. When monsters in the graveyard are removed from play, remove monsters on your side of the field from play as substitutes. This card remains active until the end of the turn that it is activated. The substitutes remain removed from play. So we got a bunch of stuff, like from Mask and Restrict. This is the type of card that makes very little sense as to why it would be worded this way. You've got the Vector Scare Archfiend kind of deal, with how it's absolutely redundant with the substitutes remain removed from play. Yeah, I'd figure, I just banished them. But then you have the fact that it's god-awful as well. What can this be used for? Why would you ever want to banish monsters from your field as opposed to your graveyard? Your graveyard is so much easier to set up than your field. Because, you know how I know this? Cards like Foolish exist, but Unexpected dies for level 4 normal monsters. That should tell you the kind of dissonance we've got going on here. So what is Spirit Elimination even used for? This is the only card on this list that I cannot possibly see a single use for it. I don't get it. I don't understand what this card is. I don't get what it's supposed to try to help you to do. If anyone knows, leave a comment down below in the comment section and let me know what the hell Spirit Elimination is even supposed to do. What it's intended to do. Not even what it can do now, but just what it should do. Just leave a comment on what it can do. Leave a replay if you want. Do whatever you can to try to get Spirit Elimination to be in any way justified to my mind.